Welcome everybody, Brother Goodwin here, Prophecy in the Spotlight. We're excited to tell you we got a guest again, Brother William P Grady. Dr. Grady with the book Perilous Times is sitting right here in the studio, and we're going to make him work today. We're going to get him talking about his book, Perilous Times. And I'm telling you, I've had a lot of conversations with him off the camera, and we've done some YouTube shows, and this is good stuff. You're going to learn something today. So get you some coffee or get you some lemonade, get you some popcorn, get on the, hey, text your friends, tell them, hey, Brother Goodwin's on, Prophecy in the Spotlight, and get your friends. And we're going to learn something today, so stand by. Welcome everybody. I'm sitting here chatting with Brother Grady here, and the camera comes on. Oh, we're on. Hey, glad to have everybody with us today. Dr. William P Grady sitting here again this week with us. I don't know where to start because I don't know where to end, brother. There's so much that I want to get you talking about. We've already introduced you last week. Evangelist, author, TV personality, let's see what else, college professor, all kinds of titles, father, grandfather, great-grandfather. Hey, is your wife going to watch the show here? Because we talked about her in one of the little clips here.
I hope she doesn't.
That she came up with one of the points in your book.
Oh,
and
yeah,
we want to make
true.
sure she gets credit for that. And you know, the old saying, behind every great man is a woman. We laugh about that, but I think it's probably true, isn't it?
They asked Mays Jackson.
She may watch now, so be careful what you say.
They asked Mays Jackson, the famous Southern preacher, if he believed in flying saucers. He said, I've been married 40 years. What do you think?
All right. Well, let's start out with this, Brother Grady. And of course, she'll put up the book. We still have What Must I Do to Be Saved? She'll put that up for you. Great book for your lost loved ones. I promise you. Get this in their hands. And maybe this will be the thing that pushes them over the edge and gets them to trust the Lord. She'll put that up for you. While she's doing that, Brother Grady, you mentioned that this book is really in 3 parts. Explain those 3 parts real quickly to them.
Okay. The first third of the book deals with the current events that so many of us came through with the COVID, the rigged election, the Ukraine war, you know, the turbulent conditions of the country relative to the publication date a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And the second third of the book is critical part. It shows why God raised America up. What was our purpose? And now we're disintegrating before our very eyes. You know, why? And then the last part is, you could say, is 4, 5, 6 chapters of basically sermons, Bible studies about how to survive, how to get through all the chaos that's engulfing us now. It's very important. Every third is a critical, unique part in itself, but it's a chronological.
Well, let's touch on number 2 there just a little bit. Why did God raise up America? Well,
a lot of people will ask, can you find America in the Bible? We know the word America is not in there, or United States. But and so many Christians, they find verses in Isaiah, the Isles, and different
eagles and things like that. Yeah.
And you know, you can't really nail that down. But believe it or not, there is a place that you can find that I've taught for years. And the other day, I was in the Knoxville, Tennessee library, working on this book, and the Lord impressed me to go get World Book Encyclopedia down off the shelf, a secular source, major non-scripture, non-biblical secular source that lined up with this very section of the scripture where you can find America alluded to. And that's over there in Genesis chapter 9, when God had these 3 sons of Noah. They scattered after the Tower of Babel incident. They weren't repopulating the earth like God said, so he scattered them. And then all of Genesis 10 tells you where they went. And for years, Christians, Bible teachers have tried to explain this, and they get jumped on by the liberals. Oh, you're dealing with racial issues and this and that. But I pulled down this World Book Encyclopedia, Pastor, I mean, brother, it was so profound, I didn't even recopy it. I took a picture of it. That's why it's dark on the screen here. This is page 439 in 2022 edition of World Book. Here's what it says. It says, Shem became the father of the Semitic peoples, including the Jews and the Arabs. Ham was the father of the Hamitic peoples. That's the African nations. The word Ham means dark or burnt. Egypt is called the land of Ham twice in the book of Psalms. But look at this. This is the key part of everything. Japheth was the father of the peoples of Asia Minor and Europe. Now that means if you have European ancestors, you are a descendant of Japheth. Mm-hmm. In Genesis 9, verse 27, God told you what he was going to do with Japheth, and it's a hate crime because he's not going to do it with Shem or Ham. He's going to do it with the Europeans. He said, God shall enlarge Japheth. That's what it says. The word Japheth, and here's the key to the whole study. The word Japheth means beautiful. Beautiful. God would one day enlarge Japheth, and the whole idea of why the white privilege, white supremacy, all this nonstop racial agitation that everybody is consumed with, there's a scriptural explanation for it. Japheth in Genesis 10 is called Japheth the elder. Ham was called the younger son. Most Bible teachers have always believed that Japheth was the firstborn. Anyone that's ever had a big brother, I had a big brother that went to Sing Sing prison for shooting a man in the police station in Brooklyn. But when I was a little kid, nobody messed with me when Gregory was around. A big brother looks out for the little siblings. The entire posterity and legacy and purpose for the European line of Noah's descendants was to get the gospel to his own people and to get the gospel to his little siblings, Shem and Ham. Mm-hmm. That is as Bible as you could get because history confirms that. And then you see you got that, you've got the enlargement of Japheth. So he goes, you have that vision of Daniel, the golden head, silver arms, brass belly, and iron legs. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Well, that's Asia, Babylon, Shem, Persians, Shem, Asia. But then Alexander the Great comes in Daniel 7 and 8 as the brass belly, and that's Europe. Knocks off the Asians, and they take over the world, followed by Rome. And now we're dealing with those 10 toes and the EU and everything going on now. But the whole idea is when you get to Acts chapter 16, for the first time, Rome or Japheth's empowered, but they're pagans. So Japheth has been enlarged by the time of Jesus' day, but they're pagans. So God raises up Paul, and Paul goes all over Asia Minor, getting the gospel to the Gentiles. But in Acts 16, verse 11, Acts 16, 11.
16:11.
He crosses over the Aegean Sea with that Macedonian vision, and he goes to Europe, and he lands there, and he brings the gospel to Europe for the very first time, to the land of Japheth. And the first person gets saved is Lydia. And her name just happens to mean beautiful. That's what Lydia means, just like Japheth. Mm-hmm. How beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace. And now Japheth is going to become enlightened now. And then, and the key thing is when you read that verse in Acts 16:11, there's two nautical terms there. We loosed and came, loosed, like loosed a vessel, and came with a straight course. That's a nautical term. And they went to the island halfway, the island halfway. This is one of the deepest things. Somebody put this on the internet. I saw this. It was too late for me to put this in my own book, but it's so beautiful. And it says in verse 11, therefore loosing from Troas, that's on the coast of Asia, coast of Turkey, now they're crossing the sea to go to Europe. Even a Schofield note 150 years ago says, here the gospel turns toward Europe. But in that verse 11, therefore loosing from Troas, we came with a straight course, there's the nautical term, to Samothracia, and the next day to Neapolis. Halfway across that Aegean Sea, Jason and the Argonauts, guns of Navarone, you know, the place is filled with islands. They stop at the largest island in that area called Samothracia. And on that island, there's a mountain called Mount Saos, S-A-O-S, highest mountain in that area apart from Crete, which is a big country almost on its own. But all the dotted islands all over that Aegean Sea, this island, Samothracia, has the largest mountain. It's used for navigation. Now, I preached this up in New Hampshire. A 28-year veteran in the Navy jumped up. He said, that's nautical term, straight course, from Troas right through that mountain or through that island, landing over there at Neapolis. That's the first gateway into Europe, right? If you look up on even crazy Wikipedia will show you this. You pull your phone up and say Mount Saos, S-A-O-S. Just pull it up. And they'll show you a picture of it. And you know what they'll tell you? How tall it is. 1,611 meters. 1,600. How could you make that up?
Yeah.
And then it says, and the next day we came to Neapolis. Neapolis means a new city. That's the first time the gospel of the grace of God hits Europe. And that word day, somebody else dug this up, and I checked into it, it's correct. The next day to Neapolis. That word day there, that's the 1,611th time the word day is found in the Word of God. And that sailor in that church service told me, he said, if you'll take that straight course like a, what do you call it, a tangent?
Transit.
Yep. You're a Navy guy. He said from Troas right across through that island that Paul stops at with the mountain, 1,611 meters, and then the next day to Neapolis. Well, keep that going. And it goes right through London, where that book was put out by Japhethites, the King James Bible. If you want to know what time it is, you got to go to England. If you want to know what the weather is, it's British thermal units, not Botswana thermal units or Beijing thermal. It's British thermal units. If you want to know where you are, you have to go to England, Greenwich, longitude and latitude. And so when you get to London, that's where this book becomes the ultimate enlargement of Japheth. But the problem is when you finally get to Europe, and you get to England and get the King James Bible, it come out in 1611. But the next year, 1612, there was a Baptist minister named, as you know, named Whiteman, Edward Whiteman, who's burned alive with the signature of King James. The Baptists, they finally had the scriptures.
We have that picture she can put up.
Yeah, they finally had the scriptures, but they had no freedom. So that's where America comes, and God raises up America. So what you had is you had the enlargement of Japheth when Alexander the Great takes over the world. That's the first time Japheth's got control of the world. You get the enlightenment of Japheth when Paul shows up there and gets the gospel to Europe, but they're under the bondage of Rome, and then they're under the bondage of Roman Catholicism. So God has to move this thing over to America. And in 1791, when the Bill of Rights is signed, now you have the enablement of Japheth, because all through the Dark Ages, one hymn in the hymn book describes everything. Faith of our fathers, living still, in spite of dungeon, fire, and sword. There's no freedom to spread the gospel until America is born with the Bill of Rights signed in Philadelphia. And so the Philadelphia church age opens. And so what do you got in your hymn book? After faith of our fathers, living still in spite of dungeon, fire, and sword, now you got a song called America the Beautiful. And now the gospel is going to go out, and that's where Japheth's legacy is going to hit the fan. He's going to get the gospel to everybody. The mission programs of the world come out of England and then the United States. That's the white man's job.
Yeah.
People can't get a clue out of it, but crazy World Book Encyclopedia confirms that Japheth birthed all of Europe, and that's where the gospel goes out. And now we've thrown it away. After about 185 years, we have the end of Japheth now.
And then my famous statement that my folks hear me say all the time, here we are at the end of all things.
Yes,
I got it from Frodo in The Lord of the Rings at the end there. Here at the end of all things.
I never watched worldly things like that. I just watched The Godfather.
One of the most, The Godfathers, yeah. I was going to play you a song on my phone, that Italian song that's so famous. I was going to play that for you, but most prophetic movie I've ever seen, or story, is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The last one is bringing back the King. That's bringing back Christ to the kingdom.
But you know what's weird? Along with Lion King and all that stuff, you know what Paul said? He said, the time will come when they'll not endure sound doctrine. They'll heap to themselves teachers having itching ears and turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned unto
fables.
fables.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. And then talking about America and the fall of America, I believe America can be seen very vividly in Revelation 18. When the shipmen and the merchants of the world are seeing Babylon, the smoke arising, and they're weeping. I do not believe that's literal Babylon. I believe that's prophetic Babylon. And I believe America is the seat of that. I believe the Babylonian one world system is America. We rule the world right now. I mean, what America says, that's the law.
Well, where the rapture destroys this country, huh?
Yeah.
Destroys what's left of it.
Yeah. And of course, you know, no matter what happens in America with what's coming, the Beltway is going to be fine. You know, Colorado might get hit with a nuke, but they're going to be fine.
Well, all the major players are still in position after the rapture.
Yeah.
That's why, you know, the day after in 1980s, I was pastoring in Idaho. Is it called The Day After? It was a nuclear war movie. Shook up the whole country.
Well, I don't watch movies.
Oh, they had churches, you know, advertising counseling centers because everybody was worried.
Yeah.
And I wrote an article in the Spokane Review newspaper. I said, look, you Christians don't have to panic about anything because according to the Daniel and Revelation, you know, 200 million men are coming in here. Gog is here. All the players are still here. America might get nuked, but the world doesn't get blown to pieces.
Yeah.
Before the tribulation period.
Because they don't need California and they don't need Colorado and New Mexico. It's the Beltway. They say it's a different world inside what they call the Beltway.
Yeah, sure.
They said the wealth of America is all around D.C. That's where all the money is.
Sure.
And you know, we talk about the problem. What's caused this? My belief, and I want to see what you think of this. I think the main cause of our demise is the preachers. I think God's men are the biggest problem. I think we've lost preaching, and preachers have lost their stand and their beliefs. We've lost the Word of God.
Well, Jesus said, we're the salt of the earth, Christians in general.
Yeah.
And if the salt shall lose its savor, wherewith it shall it be good for?
Yeah.
So 2 Timothy 4:3, from the last study we did, 2 Timothy 4:3 says the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine. That's got to be saved people.
Yeah.
Because lost people can't endure sound doctrine and then turn it off. That's Christians. And when they stop doing right because of the lack of the preachers leading them to do right, well, then the lost people come out of the cracks.
Yeah.
Evil men will wax worse and worse. It's like it's a reverse position. 2 Timothy 4 triggers 2 Timothy 3.
You know, something interesting in the book of Revelation, John, of course, is given, you know, I don't think he physically left earth. I think it was in his mind, but because in my flesh can no man see God. I think he was having visions. But he's told to write the things that he's seen, put them in a book, and send them to the 7 churches. And I just preached a sermon in Missouri on that very verse, John to the 7 churches. That's as far as I got. In fact, I never even got to my outline. John to the 7 churches. And I say this, and I believe the preachers, the pastors, are the missing link of prophecy. God didn't tell John to send the book of Revelation to the people. He said, send it to the angels of the 7 churches, which is the pastor. I think the pastor is the missing link today between him and prophecy. And that's why many are so ignorant. People don't know the book of Revelation because the pastor don't know the book of Revelation. And I think that's why everybody runs to YouTube and TV preachers, and we is one, but...
Don't forget AI.
Yeah. And so people are going outside the
AI.
church. They're going outside their pasture to learn about the second coming and the rapture. And that's why everyone's so messed up on stuff.
That's a good point.
Because the link between prophecy and the people in the church is the man of God. And he's dropped the ball.
Well, the Bible ends with a preacher on an island by himself.
Yeah. So, well, brother, let's go a little further. I want to ask you some things that, some of this is in your book. You did talk about Ukraine, but I wanted to get your...
preacher, can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
The whole thing we just covered, it dawned on me, I left the one main verse out that'll tie it together. When you go to 1 Timothy chapter 1, Paul has just gotten out of jail. I believe in that 2 imprisonment theory. He's got out of jail and he realized, he can see the handwriting on the wall. His Roman citizenship couldn't protect him anymore. Persecution's coming. He could see that. And what the Lord led him to write, now this is so critical to tie everything together. I can't believe I didn't mention it. He says in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 through 4, I exhort therefore that first of all, intercessions, prayers, giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings, and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceful life in all godliness and honesty, for this is well-pleasing to God, will have all men to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. And 99% of the pastors in America, when they quote that verse, they say, did you pray for President Biden today? Did you pray for the dog catcher? And they apply it to current applications of praying for government. There's nothing wrong with that. But in the context, when it was written, Paul was telling the church, hell's coming. You better start praying for a government that will be sympathetic to the preaching of the gospel. He got his head cut off the next year. So he never saw that prayer answered. And then by 100 AD, all the apostles are gone, martyred except John. And then after that comes the hymn book. Faith of our fathers living still in spite of dungeon, fire, and sword. So all the way through to the 18th century, when the Bill of Rights is signed, it took 17 centuries for that prayer to be answered. The purpose of the prayer is given in the 4th verse. For this is well-pleasing to God, who will have all men to be saved. You can get a lot more people saved if you're not locked up. And all those centuries, it never was answered until America came here. That's the genius of the country. And, you know, a lot of Christians are, you know, they make fun of the Constitution and Bill of Rights. They don't vote. The whole idea of this, God finally let the church or the body of Christ have a haven to come to so they could get the gospel up.
And
so that's the point of that.
And it's
passage.
worth noting, and a lot of this I remember from your classes on the history of Christianity, church history, that kind of stuff. Some of the great men that I talk about in my books are men that I remember getting from you, learning from you. George Whitefield, the boy preacher with the golden voice. I got that from you.
Right.
Bible college days. I mean,
Well, I interrupted you, Brother Dan. What were you getting ready to ask me?
The beauty of it all is the Great Awakening. There were 2 Great Awakenings in history, and they're under the King James Bible. Everybody's King James, and it really was instilled here in America. Although some European guys,
The first
the
King James
Wesleys,
Bible was printed in Philadelphia.
yeah,
At Philadelphia, brotherly love versus Laodicea, rights of the people.
So this country that God raised up is going to promote that King James Bible, going to instill 2 Great Awakenings, 1700s, 1800s.
And it's going to go reverse.
Yeah.
Look at the homeland of the King James Bible in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
It's got it had a Hindu mayor. I mean, Hindu prime minister just went out of office, but for 18 months, whatever, it's screwed the whole country up. The mayor of London is a Muslim, and the king is a vampire. King Charles, direct descendant from Vlad the Impaler. How could you get a bigger trilogy than that?
Yeah.
A Hindu, a Muslim, and a vampire. That's what happens when you reject that book.
In your introduction here, you said the great truth here is that the key responsibility of end-time pastors is to help their people keep their heads above water.
That's the cover. The ship is busted up, and we're coming in on pieces of the ship.
Yeah.
You know, and jellyfish are stinging us, and a poor pastor, you know, his people are going under, and he's got to keep them afloat. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Noah means rest. And what a pastor is supposed to do for his congregation in the last days when it's so turbulent is keep an oxygen mask on his people, keep them alive, because it's so bad.
Do you think most pastors understand what their job really is? Do you think they understand this?
Look, you know what the problem is? I preach to preachers all the time. I mean, but what I tell them is this. I said, look, we're Japhethites if we're Europeans, and God shall enlarge Japheth. What is American philosophy? My house is bigger than your house. My wife's prettier than yours. I make more money than you make. My car is cooler than yours. Bigger is better. That's American thinking. And when you get into the last days of the church age, most Americans are not going to submit to the Bible because they're chasing material things. No man can serve 2 masters. American preachers don't understand that. So they tend to compromise and cut corners just to keep the people coming. But what I tell those preachers all the time is this. Yes, we're Japhethites, and nothing wrong with reaching more people than less people, but not at the cost of compromise or doctrine. But what I tell them is this. We're Japhethites. But the big problem is our boss is a Shemite.
Yeah.
The bumper sticker says, I work for a Jewish carpenter from Nazareth. And Shem is like kung fu, grasshopper. He doesn't think the way we think, and he's more committed to truth than he is to growth. Judgment seat, every man's work shall be tried of what sort it is, not size. So American preachers, they don't have a clue. They just see things going under, and they're going to cut every corner, throwing things overboard.
And of course, when we say that, we kind of lump everyone together. There are some good men. There are some men who know how to pasture. They know.
Sure they do, but they're in a remnant.
It's a shepherd. A shepherd, he's trying to keep them sheep on their feet, keep
Correct.
the wolves away.
Feed them.
I think most pastors think their job is just to preach a sermon, do a Bible study, and
salvation
have a
sermons
bean
every
supper.
Sunday morning, and the people are starving to grow.
Yeah. And, well, I'll tell you what you said about the three parts of the book, current events, and then why America's here, which we spent a lot of time on that. That was awesome. Why God raised up this country. And of course, we're on the final lap now, and it's falling apart because we threw God out. That Bible we promoted is now being trampled upon.
Sure.
And by preachers. Preachers are scoffing at the King James Bible. We take a big stand on that here. You ask anyone who watches our show, we promote that King James Bible here. My new book, the Prophecy Puzzle, that's the first chief cornerstone of the Prophecy Puzzle is the Bible, the King James Bible. And then number 3, how to survive this thing. Maybe next week we can spend some time on that. How do you survive?
I can't
this
say
thing?
enough, Pastor Goodwin. God's been good to me. All my books sell well. God's very good to me. I don't want to make a P.T. Barnum sales pitch here, but your viewers, you've got to trust me. I've been doing this since 1993, 7 books. This is absolutely the most important book I've ever written because it's dealing with the terrible things that we're going through at this very moment. If you get this book and read it, your insight will go through the roof, and you'll have more peace because you'll understand what the Lord is doing right now. I can't say enough about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're running out of time, folks. Hope you've enjoyed. I'm sure you enjoyed the program. I mean, I just let him talk. This is the way it was at Bible college. You just sat there with your mouth open. It's mind-boggling, and I love to listen to him. And get the book. You can get 2. Get one for your pastor. Your pastor needs this book. Get one for your preacher. It's a good deal if you buy 2. A better deal than getting 1. So get that. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you, Brother Grady, for taking the time again today this week.
I'm proud of you. What you've done amazes me.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, and we're going to get you back maybe next week. But until then, keep your eyes on them skies.